Blog Talk Radio.
Paranormal Review Radio.
Hello and welcome to Paranormal Review Radio, the only paranormal show on Blog Talk Radio that discusses a variety of topics with facts, opinions, and fun. We don't claim to be experts in the field, but rather everyday people who want to learn and express everything paranormal. We bring you theories on both sides of the topic and let you, the listener, make up your own minds. My name is Anthony Gotti, broadcasting from New York City, and my co-host from Chicago is Lucy Liefried. Lucy, why don't you say hello to our listeners and give them some info?
Hi, Anthony. Hi, everyone. Boy, do we have a great show for you tonight. Our phone lines are open, so give us a call. Our show number is 661-244-9831. The phone lines are open throughout the entire show, so join the conversation. If you don't feel like calling in, our chat room is open. So post your comments, questions, or feel free to further discuss the subject with other members. Don't forget, we have a Facebook page, Paranormal Review Radio. Stop by and visit to learn more about tonight's show.
Thanks, Lucy. We have been waiting to do tonight's show for a while now, and I'm glad we actually waited because the information that we were able to gather in the last week has been phenomenal. I'm sure everyone listening right now has watched the videos on YouTube and read the articles on the strange sounds that have been recorded and talked about around the world. Tonight, we're going to try and answer the question, what the hell are those strange sounds? Lucy and I have been playing investigative reporter for the past 2 weeks and have been pushing the envelope to bring you direct answers and not just relying on articles and other media reports. Unfortunately, though, we were unable to book a guest. But that's okay. We've got you, the listener, and I'm sure you all have an opinion on this topic. If there's one show where we completely encourage callers, it's this one. But hold off from calling until we have gone through most of our research. Besides reviewing all the reports and videos, Lucy and I will discuss the history of strange sounds that have been documented as far back as the mid-1800s. Plus, we will also report on the many theories that are circulating the gamut. There's a few that we've found that actually may surprise you. And, well, of course, we'll play some of the evidence that has been reported, and maybe we can get your opinions. So, Lucy, let's get down to business and begin with some of the historic reports on the strange sounds.
All right. So, first, let's talk about what are the characteristics of the strange sounds. Well, they run from a slight humming noise to a full diesel engine. Some say they can be annoying nonstop noise, and some say at times it can be a very frightening, metallic, apocalyptic sound as though the earth is opening up or the heavens are parting. Whatever the level or degree of sound, they're all mysterious in nature and baffling, even to the most highly educated and scientific groups. Now, these strange sounds are not at all new to the unexplained world. Sounds like this have been heard and reported for many years. Anthony, I've been able to find an article from Science magazine dated 1893 that was titled Overhead Sounds in the Vicinity of Yellowstone Lake. Now, this article pertains to Yellowstone National Park, and apparently these sounds were heard by a professor in the area. Let me read for you, word for word, this article in 1893 as it is being described by Professor Forbes. Under his description of Shoshone Lake, Professor Forbes, in a footnote, thus alludes to this phenomenon. Here we first heard, while out on the lake in the bright, still morning, the mysterious aerial sound for which this region is noted. It put me in mind of the vibrating clang of a harp lightly and rapidly touched high up above the treetops, or the sound of many telegraph wires swinging regularly and rapidly in the wind, or, more rarely, of faintly heard voices answering each other overhead. It begins softly in the remote distance, draws rapidly near with louder and louder throbs of sound, and dies away in the opposite distance. Or it may seem to wander irregularly about the whole passage, lasting from a few seconds to a half minute or more. We heard it repeatedly and very distinctly here and at Yellowstone Lake, most frequently at the latter place. It is unusually noted on still bright mornings and not long after sunrise. It is louder at this time of day, but I heard it clearly, though faintly, once at noon when a stiff breeze was blowing. No scientific explanation of this really bewitching phenomenon has ever been published, although it has been several times referred to by travelers who have ventured various crude guesses at its cause, varying from that commonest catch-all of the ignorant, electricity, to the whistling of the wings of ducks and the noise of the steamboat geyser. It seems to me to belong to the classes of aerial echoes, but even on that supposition, I cannot account for the origin of the sound. It's eerily familiar that Professor Forbes' description of the sounds and the sounds that we're hearing today. The author of this article, Edwin Linton, also gave a description of the sounds he heard as he and Professor Forbes went back to the same spot the following day. Here is the exact article that Mr. Linton wrote. On the following morning, we heard the sound very plainly. It appeared to begin directly overhead and to pass off across the sky, growing fainter and fainter towards the southwest. It appeared to be rather indefinite, reverberating sound, characterized by a slight metallic resonance. It begins, or it's first perceived, overhead. At least nearly everyone in attempting to fix its location turns his head to one side and glances upward. Each time that I heard the sound on Shoshone, it appeared to begin overhead, or as one of the men in the party expressed, it was all over, and to move off to the southwest. We did not hear the sound while on Lewis or Heart Lake. The next time I heard the sound was on August 4th, when we were camped on the thumb of Yellowstone Lake. Professor Forbes and I were out on the lake making sound readings about 8 a.m. The sky was clear and the lake was quiet. The sun was beginning to shine with considerable power. The sound seemed loudest when overhead and apparently passed off to the southward or a little east of south. It had the same peculiar quality as that heard on Shoshone Lake, and it's just as difficult to describe. There was the same slight hint of metallic resonance and what one of the party called a kind of twisting sort of yow-yow vibration. There was a faint resemblance to the humming of telegraph wires, but the volume was not steady nor uniform. Wow. Okay, so did you notice that Mr. Linton describes the sound as metallic? Now, doesn't that sound like a familiar description we have been hearing over the past few months? One piece of information. Yellowstone National Park has about an average of 2,000 earthquakes a year. Now, could this be a relation to the sounds and seismic activity? It is one of the theories that has been presented, which we're going to discuss later on.
Lucy, if I may, I'm going to go a little further than that in history and go to around 1864. I found 3 eyewitness letters from 3 separate civilians in the British newspaper within a 5-day span. They are in response to a report from the British Meteorological Society that was published in 1864, accounting a January 16th incident. Now, the first letter to the newspaper is dated from January 21st, 1864, describing the accounts that happened on January 16th. Here's the exact letter as it was written to the editor of the Morning Herald in Britain. Quote, I partly expected to see in your issue of today some notice from your correspondents of a curious phenomenon that took place about Saturday, January 16th at midnight. This was a loud and continuous noise in the air, apparently coming from the south or southwest, and accompanied with a sound resembling that made by a heavy luggage train a short distance away, or the sound of a large waterfall. It lasted from about 11:45 till about 2 a.m., so far as I know, for I went to bed at a later time, and there was no intermission during that time. The air was perfectly still, except now and then fitful gusts. There was no rain, but the sky was overcast. My idea was that it was a great storm of wind overhead, a mass of quiet air lying between us and it. Perhaps some of your readers may have noticed the same thing in other parts of the country. The policemen and others spoken to whilst it was going on all declared it was a luggage train, until undeceived by its continuing so long. The second letter that I found is in direct response to the first letter and recounts his experience dated January 23rd, 1864. It's strange to see the way that he describes the sound as a roar. So here's the letter, again, word for word. Quote, "The phenomenon described by our Cheltenham correspondent as having occurred at and from midnight on Saturday and continuing for some hours, resembling the noise made by a heavy luggage train, was distinctly heard in this locality and was commented upon at the time as being something unusual. The unusually hollow and continuous noise of this supposed storm induced me to go out, with the intention of ascertaining whether the roar proceeded from above or below, the sound being not much unlike that sometimes produced by the action of the sea, which our fishermen tell us is the precursor of a gale. I soon convinced myself that this was not the case, but that the noise came from overhead. On the night of Tuesday the 19th, there was an even greater manifestation of the phenomenon than that of the previous Saturday, the 16th. There was, in fact, a perfect roar in the upper air from near midnight until 2 or 3 a.m., so much so indeed that, knowing how much unlikely it was to be caused by the merely fresh breezes then blowing on land from the southwest, it excited my curiosity and that of my wife to such a degree as prevented our sleeping. I ultimately discovered that there was violent commotion in the air at a considerable elevation, masses of nimbi being seen to pass under the moon with desperate velocity. The next daybreak found us enveloped in a cold, drizzling, driving fog, since which we have had equally and unsettling weather." And finally, the third letter states that this guy lives further away from the first two accounts and still heard the noise. Here again is his letter, word for word, and this one was dated January 26, 1864. Quote, "The interesting and peculiar phenomenon observed by Augustetta and Cheltenham and Mr. Brett at St. Leonard's are but more distinct state of disturbance, though of the same nature as we have experienced at intervals since the beginning of the month. On the night of the 19th, during a heavy rainfall, I heard a sound as of a distant storm. Being thereby induced to look out, I found everything in a comparatively quiescent state, but the noise continued for upwards of a half an hour. That the same should have occurred at distant places at the same time is in itself remarkable."
I'm so happy that we found this bit of information. It puts everything into perspective, and to me, it seems to negate the whole idea of the world-ending theory and the sounds of the apocalypse.
Yeah, I think we can say that this is not a result of the world ending, since, the science, since these reports are over 100 years old. I mean, or can it?
Who knows? No one can say yet definitively what they are or why we're hearing them, which is a good thing, or else we wouldn't have anything to talk about tonight, would we?
Lucy, going back to what you were talking about with Yellowstone Park and the seismic activity, I did my own little analysis report on the relationship of earthquake activity and the reported locations of the sounds. I found out that 9 times out of 10, there was no link between them. What I did was I actually took a list of the video dates and the locations that you would find sort of like on YouTube or anywhere else on the Internet. And I compared them to the National Earthquake Information Center report online. And this is, anybody can access this information. And I had no real match. There were a few matches, but either the seismic activity was too far away from the reported location, or the dates were too far apart. But you know what? Hey, I'm not a scientist.
That was some nice work, Anthony. At least you were able to come away with some sort of conclusion. Okay, so speaking of videos, why don't we take a look at the videos that are floating around on YouTube right now? We have some clips that we want to play, and keep in mind, these clips have not been verified. We have no way of knowing if they're true to form or complete fakes for that matter. So, Anthony, I'd like to talk about some of these videos that are showing up, okay? They all seem to start about August of 2011, with the one in Kiev, Ukraine, the one in Conklin, Alberta, Canada. There are several videos that do try to debunk the sounds, and now there's even news reports from mainstream media. I'm going to talk about just a few, but remember, YouTube is full of others. You'll find them all. Just go to YouTube, type in strange sounds in the sky. I do want to start with the Kiev video that's on YouTube. Anthony, I think you've got a clip from that. Can you play that for us?
Sure.
Okay. Now, there's several versions of this video, but I want to talk about the longest one, which is 11 minutes long, because there's several interesting points about this video. Now, the Kiev video is filmed from a high point, and it looks like it's an apartment building. It's daytime. Like I said, the video is 11 minutes long, and the sounds start about 33 seconds into the video. It's that metallic noise that's been described kind of like the sound of an old submarine moving and creaking. Now, there's no one in this video looking up. In fact, there's very few people in the scene. If you can faintly hear the sounds of children playing somewhere. This camera angle doesn't move very much. At 1 minute 14, you do hear a squeak that kind of sounds like a tropical bird. And then you see the first person walking by below. They never look up at the sky. At 1 minute 55 seconds, you see 3 people strolling by as if nothing unusual is happening. They, too, never look up. You can hear birds chirping peacefully, and at 2 minutes 44 seconds, you hear what sounds like a tropical bird in Kiev. Now, at 3 minutes 35 seconds, there is another tropical-sounding bird, and you actually can hear the person who's filming talking to a child in the room. No panic, no wonder in anyone's voice. Now, this video goes on for about another 6 minutes. No one seems to hear anything above. There's no reaction from anyone on the ground until about 7 minutes 38 seconds, where a woman walks by, and she's pushing a baby stroller, and she's got a small dog with her. She's calm. She doesn't see, she's strolling. She looks back twice, but she doesn't look up. She just looks back towards the camera. The small dog never even reacts. Now, I've had dogs all my life. If they hear something out of the ordinary, they usually react, especially small dogs like the one that's in the video. At this time, the sound continues in the background. But if you turn off the sound, this video actually just looks like a normal day. Another one of the videos that was posted early on in this phenomena is the one that's from Conklin, Alberta. Anthony, do you have the sound clip from that one? Can we hear that?
Yes. Yeah, I do. And actually, just so everybody knows, all the listeners know, we posted all of the videos on our Facebook page on Paranormal Review Radio on Facebook. So if you wanted to, you can go there, and you can actually, what Lucy was talking about, you can actually listen and see the video firsthand. It is 11 minutes long. But I'm going to play the Conklin, Alberta video now.
Okay. That video is only 1 minute, 19 seconds long. As of Tuesday night this week, it already had 1,998,386 hits. Now, it appears to be a tree-filled mountain area. It's daytime. 2 forestry workers are in the shot, and as the video starts, you see them looking up before the sound even starts. Now, you hear a sound like a jet and what could be described as children in the background, much like the Kiev video. But wait, you hear birds and children until 18 seconds when the first trumpet-like sound is heard. Now, as the camera pans up to the trees and the sky, then it goes back to the workers. Now, the workers are still looking up, and the sound continues. At 39 seconds, you hear what sounds like a tropical bird. Exactly like the bird that was heard in the Kiev video. Now, the sounds continue, and the camera moves around again. At 59 seconds, you hear that tropical bird again in Canada. Another video that's on YouTube is one from Costa Rica. Anthony, we've got that sound clip. Can you play that one? Now, that video has 3 separate incidents of sound on one video. It's actually only 2 minutes and 17 seconds long. The first one, the caption says it's in January 2011. You'll see the video start on a road in a residential area with palm trees and a power line overhead. You don't see any people. It is daytime. The sound starts almost immediately. It's soft at first, and then it progresses almost into the exact same sound you hear both in Kiev and Conklin. Now, at 55 seconds, this video moves to a night shot, and it appears to be a different area. You hear a man talking in Spanish. He does say, listen, and then something that I couldn't understand. He goes, what is, and then another word. You hear a rumbling sound, but you don't hear a trumpet sound. Then at 1 minute 24, you hear a sound that is much like the sound in the Kiev and Conklin videos, but this sound could almost be described like machinery running. Now, Costa Rica has a few videos on there. There's actually a video that is from an actual Costa Rican news report. The report's in Spanish, but they actually play a recording of a booming sound like a drum. Now, they comment on how Facebook and Twitter went nuts after the sounds were heard, and this was in the middle of the night. They do reference the Kiev video and another video which is shot in Colorado on August 22nd, 2011. Now, that video was taken right before an earthquake occurred that day in Colorado. The Costa Rican sounds that you hear are basically the same sounds. So can we play that, the one from Colorado? Okay. That Colorado video, it's only 37 seconds long, but the sound starts immediately, and as I mentioned before, it's a booming drum-like sound. It's daytime. The camera moves around. You see the trees. You see the mountains. This sound is loud, and it can only be described as a drum beat. So let's stop and think about this. we've got quite a few videos popping up on the internet. Some have a trumpet sound, some with a drum-like sound. Along with this, there's also quite a few videos debunking the sounds. And I actually found two of them quite interesting. Now, the first one that I found was by a man who calls himself the Militant Agnostic. In his video, he goes about debunking the sound in his own way. He starts by following a timeline of the events, and it starts again in August of 2011. In August 2011, you have the first appearance of videos of sounds on YouTube. Now, in that same month, there was a prediction regarding Comet Elenin. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it had to do with the destruction of the Earth. Actually, it was supposed to happen on 9/26/11, and it was predicted that earthquakes were going to sink the Pacific Rim, Australia, New Zealand, Russia, the west coast of the U.S. into the ground. No one noticed the sound video because everybody was freaking out about the comets. Now, in August of 2011, an earthquake hit West Virginia. August 23rd, it was felt in New York City. Personally, I'm never going to forget that day. I went to lunch, and I got a text from you, Anthony, saying that there was an earthquake in New York City. Then you didn't answer my text back. I got scared. That same day, there is a sound heard at Tropicana Field in Florida during a televised Marlins game. The play-by-play announcers, they actually talked about it. And when the sound stops, the crowd cheers. Now, the video is posted on YouTube. It is a haunting, supernatural sound. This is how they described it. Videos were posted all over about the strange sounds during the baseball game. Well, let's look at this. Tropicana Field is a domed stadium. It actually was reported that the stadium was hit by lightning, and it is documented that the PA system was giving feedback. Anthony, do you have that one? The sound clip of that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The first inning. That's a haunting sound, if we've ever heard one. 1 ball, no strikes. And the bunt is foul. The count is 1-1.
And what could that possibly be? Somebody shut the door.
It sounds supernatural.
That's really kind of creepy. But let's continue with the timeline in this video. Okay, we're still in August of 2011. The Kiev video of the sounds is posted online. Of course, there's a metallic sound and a bird sound that appears in a majority of the later videos. Now, that metallic sound is actually the same one from a sound effect from either the movie War of the Worlds or a movie called Red State. Red State is a 2011 movie that's starring John Goodman. It was released in September 2011. Now, one theory is that the audio was stripped from the Red State video and dubbed over the footage of Kiev. Now, the squeak sound and the trumpet sounds all appear in that video that's in Kiev, Conklin, Chicago, and Mexico. The same sounds appear in all of these videos. The scene from Red State that contains the same sound is actually shown in this video, and it really does sound the same. Anthony, can you play that, and then we can see that it really does sound.
Drop the fucking gun!
You don't have to do this.
Get back.
There's enough evidence to put us all away for life.
Don't move! Back, all right?
There's babies in the attic.
No!
You all right?
What the fuck was that?
pretty much the same, doesn't it? Well, the next video I found that was debunking has to be my favorite. Now, this one is by a man named Van Helton, and he goes about debunking the sounds, and he gives his theory as to what he thinks the sounds are. He, too, gives a timeline about the sounds. He starts back in 2007 in Canada, in South America, and Europe. People were complaining of ringing in their ears, and it was found that it wasn't tinnitus. Now, the form of tinnitus was not, they couldn't cure it by meds. And the discomfort of people suffering from this became worse and worse. It actually was found that the closer to the ground you were, the worse it was. Well, let's go to 2008. The sound appears again, but it's not loud. You kind of had to strain to hear it. People around the world reported hearing it. 2009, same thing. Sounds appears again, not that loud. You had to strain to hear it. People are still reporting that they heard it. 2010, same thing. Sound appears again, not loud. You had to strain to hear it. People around the world heard it. Now, let's move to 2011. The noise is heard, but this time it's louder. 2012, the noise is now heard very loudly. It's powerful, it's creepy. It's a metallic grinding sound. It sounds like an old spaceship or an old submarine that goes too deep and the metal starts to creep. The sound is identical in different spots. It's not identical in different spots, but it is similar. Now, one of his theories is that it's a prelude of a massive earthquake. But when the 9.8 and 8.8 earthquakes in Chile and in Haiti happened, there were no sounds before the quakes. So this theory is debunked. He mentions the Canadian video with the workers looking up in the sky. The sound is coming from the sky. Not likely that it's coming from the ground. All is in agreement that it's coming from the sky. He then talks about Bible prophecy. Behold a new heaven and a new earth. Vaughn states that since the sounds, there has been much more UFO activity. Now, this noise is now being reported by mainstream media. Costa Rica, the whole country heard the noise. And could this be the mothership preparing to land? Another theory, it may be a prelude to a major pole shift. It may be seismic activity at the South Pole. So finally, Mr. Van Helton gives his theories. He says that there's a video feed from the government in 2007, and this was supposed to be of meteorite activity. Well, in this feed, he says the moon appears to melt and drip. He says there's a chemtrail plane that goes by in the film, and the moon actually disappears. Ancient Tibetan writings state that heaven and earth were destroyed a long time ago. Eschatology. It is concerned with what is believed to be the final events of history, the ultimate destiny of humanity, and it's commonly referred to as the end of the world or the world to come. Now, Van refers to Shambhala. In Tibetan Buddhism, Shambhala is the source of an esoteric branch of mysticism called the chakra, and great gurus are believed to visit Shambhala to receive those teachings. The myth also it mentions the indigenous Bon tradition of Tibet, and it's also known as Omolurunging. Shambhala is described, it's being 8 regions arranged in a mandala of an 8-petaled lotus, each region being surrounded by a ring of snow-clad mountains. Now bear with me, this does have a point. The innermost ring lives the king, who represents the Kalachakra's deity. The cosmic mountain Meru and the tree of life are located in the center of Shambhala. Now, Shambhala is said to exist simultaneously in the material, psychic, and spiritual dimension. Only realized beings can enter it since certain features of the kingdom are accessible only to an advanced clairvoyant vision. It is also said the inner circle, adepts in Shambhala, keeps a record of Earth's geological history. Inhabitants of Shambhala are fabled to have developed advanced technology and paranormal abilities by focusing on planetary energies. Now, according to the Kalachakra prophecy, the last Shambhala king, Rudara Chakran, an incarnation of Manjarishi, the Bodhisattva of wisdom, and a reincarnation of the Dalai Lama, will defeat the forces of evil at the end of Kali Yuga and establish a golden age through planetary initiation. Some legends equate him with Kalki, the doomsday avatar of Vishnu. Now, New Agers connect this prophecy to Nostradamus' prediction of the emergence of a young Indian leader who will restore sacred order in the world. The Shambhala prophecy is also believed to be the source of legends of a future Messiah in all religions. Many lamas believe that this may happen around 2012, which is also the end of the Mayan calendar. Okay, there's a reason why I've added all this information about Shambhala and the Tibetan beliefs, and here's Vaughn's thoughts on this. He goes on to say, Tiamat was struck and destroyed, Mars also, from all the writings. What if Earth was destroyed and the people were put on a spaceship and now the spaceship is getting old? The metallic sound is the ship starting to break up. Sounds of metallic grinding. The sky is half blue, half gray. Cloud formations that are strange. Project Bluebeam has been in existence for years. The elite class knows this, and we are on a barge that is going to a new world. We are getting near to the new heaven and earth, as mentioned in the Bible. Now, the Bible is not the only one who talks about it. He says it may be a matrix put in place by the elite. Another one of his theories is the possibility that it's a military strategy. In order to conquer your enemy, you need to disorient them. The noise may be an attempt to disorient and confuse us. Werner von Braun predicted an alien invasion, and the sounds may be the prelude. The increase in UFO activity is a clue to this. Now, not all of the sightings are secret government projects. There are more abductees. One of them, a Charles Hall, talked about the whites he has encountered. So Vaughn's final conclusion? Some of the videos are faked. The sound is not earthquake related. Vaughn feels it's the big spaceships flying overhead preparing to invade. And Vaughn said he's not going to go quietly. This is my planet, he says.
I don't know about Von Helton's theory, and I'm going to keep my opinion to myself on that one. All right, so now that we've heard the sounds and seen all the YouTube videos, what are people saying could be the cause of them, besides Von Helton? One new term that I've heard them call these sounds is skyquakes, and I kind of actually sort of like that term. It almost fits the description of the sounds. But what could possibly making these skyquakes? Before I set out on to do my research on tonight's topic, I actually had heard that there were several different theories as to what these sounds could be. Either they were a precursor to earthquakes, as we were just talking about, sort of like plate-shifting groans, or they were sort of the paranormal theories like UFOs. But once I started researching, the theories just kept flooding in like rain. Some I never even thought were possible or even existed. We've got some great research, so turn off your cell phones and get rid of any other distractions because you don't want to miss this information. Listen close to all of them and let us know which you believe more or which sounds more like a possibility. You may be surprised with your answers. Okay, so we can't first talk about strange sound theories without mentioning the whole end of the world conspiracy theory. Now, as we've reported on a very first show last year, the Maya 2012 calendar end of the world idea is just nonsense, and that all reports indicate that we are not going to leave this planet come December 21st. Yes, there will be some astrological changes and amazing alignments come the end of this year, but it's not going to be like the movie. With that said, one theory suggests that the fault lines, especially the New Madrid fault line that runs through the Andes Mountains in the United States, could be moving and could very well be possibly causing the sounds. But this does not explain all the sounds like in Canada and especially overseas. A very small group of scientists are saying that the Earth is in a major shift right now due to the planet's alignment that will happen later this year. And because of this major shift, all fault lines are moving and sliding and could very well be creating these sounds all over the world. This could very well be one of the top theory explanations and something I find to be something we actually should look into further. Lucy, you actually did some investigative work and was able to reach out to a scientist in Canada to help shed some light on, all of these sounds and sounds in Canada. specifically the sounds that were heard in North Battleford, Saskatchewan, Canada. Can you tell us about your report? Lucy, are you there?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Anthony, that's correct. I was able to reach out to a scientist in Canada. Now, I heard of the news report on the North Battlefield sounds in Saskatchewan, and many people witnessed it, including the mayor of the town. After I heard the report and I saw the news program, I figured I should find out more and get to the bottom of it. So I was able to reach out to someone who was very close to the incident in North Battleford. Now, he's asked us to keep him anonymous for fear of being hassled with emails and phone calls. Well, Paranormal Review Radio respects those wishes, and we're not going to publicly say his name on the air tonight, but we can share with you his email description of what he thinks it might be. So here's his email response. Hi, Paranormal Review Radio. Let me just tell you where I'm coming from and leave it at that. I am a physicist and will never stop seeking mundane explanations to phenomena that surround us. My first reaction is that I'm skeptical of strange, unusual things and that nobody can reproduce at will, and I am not easily convinced by hearsay. The TV clip got that, but they made it sound that I was saying that the sound came from the aurora. They had taken a few things out of what I said, and this got put out of context. The aurora does not produce real audible sounds. He's referring to the fact that the news report kind of pointed out that he said that the sounds were coming from the aurora borealis. Okay, continuing with his email now. The aurora does not produce real audible sound, but electromagnetic waves that can be picked up with proper antennas. Not knowing anything about the origin of the videos, I likely wrongly queried the presence of antennas hooked on the camcorders. One way or another, this is not the sound that people hear. This stated, after looking a bit more at the Battleford report, I am inclined to believe that there seem to be a number of people that actually heard the strange noises. So I am inclined to think that this particular episode may have been real, though I have not witnessed the phenomenon firsthand. My mundane explanation for the Battleford sounds would be that the atmospheric conditions of that week created what I would describe as a sound mirage, by analogy to optical mirages. When the sounds were heard, there may well have been a temperature inversion in the lower atmosphere. This is not unusual for very cold temperatures of that kind that were present at the time. In the presence of temperature inversion, the part of the sound that moves upward away from a source will be deflected down again and could undergo very strange propagation to very long distances if it keeps bouncing up and down. If the up and down motion is done over a narrow height, the sound waves will even be guided. The large distances will also introduce distortions, with different frequencies traveling at somewhat different speeds and higher frequencies being absorbed more than lower frequencies. So my suggestion is that a sound made by, say, a snowplow 30 kilometers away reached Battleford, and the distortions in the sound after the long travel made people think of it as a snowplow from hell. I have no time to research this, but if I had, I would pursue the above avenue. I gather, for instance, that a cannon sound from Vancouver was once heard 70 kilometers away, and I would put this phenomenon in the same category. What complicates matters is that there will no doubt be hoaxes on the YouTubes. Still, I saw one from the young lady that was really scared by a noise that I quite often hear at home, being 1 kilometer away from the freeway and a half a kilometer away from a triage area for trains. The intensity of the sound varies a lot from day to day. Now, in the young lady's case, I guess the distance must have been considerably larger, and the sound would have seemed very abnormal, but not if she had lived close to the source as I do. Bottom line, I am not convinced of the reality of the YouTubes or other reports, although some of it does seem believable. If so, there has to be a simple enough physical explanation, and I would explore the sound propagation hypothesis. It would be fun to experiment on this, but I don't have the time. I don't think there's much more for me to say. I would agree to let you quote me on this, but would like to remain anonymous because I don't want to face a pile of emails on the subject.
Lucy, I know he's a professor and scientist, and with all due respect, even I don't buy that response. Sound distortions, seriously, come on. He could have done better than that. I mean, I would have accepted sound tremors from plate tectonics or from earthquakes. At least that sounds more like a scientific response than this.
Well, he was kind enough to respond, so we should respect his answers. Besides, his answers was just one of the many that we found. So why don't you continue with the theories and play nice, Anthony?
Me? I always play nice. We actually have a caller on the line. If you don't mind, Lucy, I'm going to take this caller. It's area code 907. Hello, you are on the air. Please give us your name and where you're calling from.
I have a browser right here. Open. Okay.
Hello?
Baby.
Hello?
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 Hi.
Hello, are you there?
Yeah, this is Tim.
Hey, Tim.
Hello? Hi, what is your name?
Tim?
Hey, Tim, how are you?
Good. I'm a first-time caller to this show from Anchorage, Alaska.
Thank you
great.
for calling, Tim.
Yeah, what I think, excuse me, about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I was watching some show, and it was like a sci-fi, what is it show. And I had a friend that lived in Taos, New Mexico, and they were talking about some humming. It might have been Unsolved Mysteries, I can't remember, but some humming coming from a mountain down there. So I called my friend, and they were like, yeah, man, it rings your ears. Some people were probably more susceptible or more sensitive to it than others, but about, I don't know, 7 years later, up here, about 5 years ago, for some reason we started hearing, just a weird sound. I don't know what it was. It wasn't that yet. It became that later on. But it was just a grinding steel sound. It was obviously coming from Elmendorf Air Base, which I live about a mile from, not even that, a half mile. And it was buzzing, and then it started getting loud. And it was sounding like a hull, like a ship, submarine being imploded or crushing, it was weird. That went on all summer. And this was probably the summer of, 2007. And about 6 months ago, I met a guy on YouTube that's from Anchorage who has a site. And he works for the Alaska Railroad, and they built a spur, which they usually never do, but they spurred into the base, and they were building a FEMA camp out there. And the spur went down. It got to the base, and then they had to build it going into this tunnel that was going underground. And he said the tunnel was pretty good size. I mean, he didn't get into the total dimension, but, big. Like a huge
where was the tunnel located? Where was the tunnel located?
Elmendorf Air Force Base.
Oh, okay.
And we have a camp out there that's supposedly a FEMA camp that holds like 3.5 million people, but I assure you it doesn't hold that many. It might look like it hold 500,000 tops, 300,000, but it might process 3.5 million, but it's not going to hold it. So I don't know where they're putting the people. Maybe it's underground. I don't know. But
since you're from Alaska, have you ever heard of the federally run or government-owned run agency called HAARP?
Oh yeah. Mark Begich and his brother, that he's in on it, Nick Begich, as far as reporting about it. Yeah, that's Gakona, Alaska. I used to work up there for King Salmon Air Base, and we go out to Gakona. But yeah, all these bases up here, I have friends that are all on contractors, are all, built by regular people, construction companies. They put out the bid and we build it. I'm sure you sign. We don't see any
confidentiality release and stuff.
We're there. It's just a tunnel, dirt, and cement. What they put in it after we leave, I don't know. Like when they, what he did is, we dug it out and put a pad there for HARP in the field and put up a few outbuildings. After he left, then they brought in all their stuff and did, packed in whatever they're going to build, And they do it that way for a reason. They want one person doing one job, another person doing another. No one ever sees the whole process from start to finish.
So,
that's how they keep their confidentiality.
Exactly.
So, Tim,
yeah.
Have you or any of the contractors, while you were working on this project, did anybody ever report hearing unusual noises?
No, not that I know of. I think some of that was after the fact. I think that was after he left, and they'd already put the spur in. They never heard it. But after it was in, then the military, they got their, boring machine down there, and they're putting a tunnel wherever they're going to do. We have tunnels, according to certain friends of mine that are now retired in the military, that go all over. They go from Anchorage to Russia to Fairbanks, Fort Wainwright. We have them already going under the Bering Sea into the Soviet Union.
Okay, so based on what I'm putting together here, the sounds really didn't start until after these tunnels were completed, correct?
That's what I'm thinking too. Or they're grinding through something, and that's what you're hearing. And for some reason, it's permeating up through the substrata.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I made a little joke on your thing. As far as a spaceship cloak, I saw the same thing that Maud put in there. I was laughing hard. That was pretty funny. I don't think it's a spaceship floating above us. It's a big city, no.
Well, one of the other theories, which I was actually going to get into in a little while, is the whole big stink that everybody's making right now about fracking. And it's that new sort of system of gathering the gases from the earth, and it's digging the tunnels into the ground, blowing up these silos to crack the earth, and then they're able to shove water and sand in it to, sort of make those cracks even wider, so that they're able to get the gas and the fumes and the oil from the earth. And I don't know if it's the same thing as what you were just talking about now about those tunnels. But it could be a precursor to that sort of fracking system. I'm not sure, though.
I don't think it's the fracking. It's a totally different set of equipment. And I think that grinding you're hearing isn't the sound of the rock being cut. I think it's just the sound of the equipment being moved. These boring machines are very big. I mean, they're in diameter, they're probably 50 feet. Minimum.
Yeah.
All right, and this is a lot of steel that's being moved around, and it creaks, But I don't know. I mean, maybe it's amplified somehow through the tunnel, and it's popping up through an air shaft somewhere, and that's what they're hearing. It doesn't sound that loud down there, but by the time it goes through the tunnel, it's magnified somehow, like a woofer, and maybe that's why it sounds like that. But, yeah.
So you haven't heard it since 2007? Was that the last time?
I was when they were putting in that FEMA camp in that spur line of base, and I haven't heard the sound since they had put it in. That was the last time I heard those sounds. But they were loud, and they were that, and it was very. I mean, it would make my the hairs in my ear, would kind of rattle around.
Was it similar to the other sounds that you sort of hear the videos on YouTube and online? Were that similar to those, or was it different?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
wow.
So Tim, so basically, if you heard the sounds from the tunnels that were being built up there, so is it thought that just popped in my head? So that means very possibly they're digging other tunnels in different areas around the world?
That's what I'm thinking.
Wow.
So how are those tunnels being made?
That's really interesting.
Thank you so much, Tim, for calling in. That was great information you gave us. Thank you so much.
Thank
All right.
you.
I'll listen to you guys off air.
Oh, great. Thanks, Tim. Bye-bye.
Wow.
That was great.
Interesting theory.
That actually, when he was talking about those tunnels, it actually brought me back to one of the other shows that we did on the UFOs. Remember the Denver, Colorado airport?
Mm-hmm. Under the airport.
And the tunnels that were being built underneath the airport there, that was so secretive, and it was sort of like the bunkers for the end of the world that they supposed that they were creating. And he was saying that these were 50 feet wide. I mean, that's the only thing that comes to mind when he was talking about that.
It's pretty creepy, but like I said, I mean, if the sounds didn't start till after the tunnels were built, and then now we're hearing it all over the world, it does make you think. I mean, could they be literally making tunnels all over the world?
Well, there's so many theories, and getting back to tonight's topic, there's so many theories out there that are, that can be relevant to what we're hearing. And what I was just discussing just before with Tim on the phone was fracking. And has anyone ever actually heard of fracking and what that is? Hydraulic fracturing is what it's called, basically, is a simple concept, but yet it's very intricate and a complex system. To put it simply, oil companies use a system to force cracks underground, creating channels so that they can pump oil and the gas more freely. The system in which they use to create the fractures or cracks is to send these cylinder missiles underground and detonate them to create the cracks. Then once they remove these cylinders, they force, under high pressure, water, chemicals, and sand to widen the cracks, and they're able to release the gas more freely. And this process is actually wrong on so many levels, including water contamination in the ground. But besides that, the cracking method and forced opening of the ground mixed in with the high pressure could possibly cause these harrowing sounds. As Tim was saying, that metal in that ground and it's sort of amplified in that tunnel could be the same thing here. But again, this only explains the sky sounds that we hear in the U.S. and not overseas.
Anthony, another theory that's being mentioned, now that we're talking about different theories, is that these strange sounds are being caused by meteor showers. Now, meteor showers can definitely produce some very weird sounds, but could they account for all of the widespread incidents all over the globe? I mean, many believe that the meteor showers will become very intense in 2012 and in 2013. But it just seems like a bit of a stretch to blame all of these strange sounds on meteor showers at this point. Now, could these sounds have something to do with the changes in the magnetic field of the Earth? That's actually much more realistic than what many people think. Some really weird things have been going on with the magnetic field of the Earth lately. And I think this is definitely one area that should be investigated further.
Well, another, actually going along those lines of the magnetic field, another explanation along the science road points to Fukushima nuclear disaster that happened last March, if everyone remembers that. And this theory comes from, and I found this online, from the Truther Girls. They're on YouTube, and you can look them up and hear their full explanation. But they explain that after the Fukushima nuclear disaster happened, the protons that were released during the disaster have traveled into the atmosphere and are floating around in the Earth's natural magnetic belt. And while traveling in the magnetic belt, the protons can create disturbances in the magnetic field and cause interference with regular radio waves. And the sounds are created due to this action, and that could very well be what we are experiencing.
Anthony, that seems plausible, but not sure about the science of that theory. I guess that's another one that should be investigated. There are so many theories out there on this. It's crazy that no one is doing any real research on this.
Well, you know what? I'm actually glad you mentioned that, because there actually is a group that started to investigate this further, and sadly it's not here in the U.S. It's actually coming from Malaysia, specifically the Malaysian Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. And they recently had an experience in Kota, Samarahan, Malaysia. And this experience of strange sounds, similar to those reported worldwide, actually prompted the Deputy Minister of Science, Technology, and Innovation in Malaysia to form an investigative committee on research for all the reports of strange sounds. The Deputy Minister, Datuk Haji Fadila Yusof, has said that he will continue the investigative efforts until answers are found. When I read about this piece of news, I contacted the Deputy Minister of Malaysia for comment, but have yet to receive a response.
Anthony, I actually just found out some bit of information on that piece. Just this past Wednesday, I noticed that the Kota Samaran sounds had been solved.
Really? What did they say caused it?
Okay. Here's what they publicized as a cause. The so-called rumble in the sky over Kota Samaran near here on January 11th and 12th was explained by the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation as the whistling sound of steam released through a vent in the Felkra palm oil mill. It is said that the whistling sound was due to the steam which the factory released in the air on the wee hours of January 11th and 12th when it was in operation.
Wow. This phenomenon is changing so fast it's hard to keep up. All right, well, at least that one was solved. One more well-known scientific theory is that these sounds are being created by HAARP or DARPA, like I had mentioned before, HAARP. These two government-run agencies they're almost like Area 51. Nobody knows anything about them. HAARP, which stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, is simply a program to further advance our knowledge of the physical and electrical properties of the Earth's ionosphere, which can affect our military and civilian communication and navigation systems. DARPA, or the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, was established in 1958 to prevent strategic surprise from negatively impacting U.S. national security and creating strategic surprise for U.S. adversaries by maintaining the technological superiority of the U.S. military. These two programs have been on the hot seat the last few weeks and have not made any comments on the strange sounds coverage. Again, I decided to seek out answers on my own, and I sent an email to both HAARP and DARPA to request they give an official statement or to come on our radio show. Of course, HAARP did not respond, but I did get a response from DARPA. Well, if you can call it a response. This is from DARPA Public Affairs Office, and they basically said, and I quote, "Dear Anthony, thank you for your note. Due to other commitments, we are unable to support your request. Best of luck with your radio show. Best, Brad."
Oh, God. Unbelievable. But then again, it is unbelievable as any government-run agency will not give a real answer to anything.
Yeah, I know. It reminds me of our UFO show that we did, and actually don't get me started on that one.
Okay, well, let's not, okay? So, speaking of UFOs, there have also been some paranormal explanations. Now, the main paranormal theory that has been at the top of the list is UFOs. Now, some UFO researchers have suggested that many people are not only hearing these strange sounds with their ears, but that they are also staying in their heads afterwards. So, could there be a paranormal element to these weird noises? During most of these events, there has not been anything unusual in the sky, but some UFO researchers have suggested that we can't see the UFOs because the strange sounds are being made by cloaked ships. So maybe Vaughn from the video isn't so far off in his theory?
Oh, there goes that Vaughn guy again. This next theory is not so much paranormal, but more biblical, as I am sure many of you heard before, the 7 trumpets of Revelations. This one is kind of interesting to talk about since it doesn't have an eerie similarity to what's going on now. And you add the Maya calendar and Doomsday and the strange sounds and the book of Revelations talking about the 7 trumpets, and you've got a recipe for a great ending. Let's review the biblical text of the phenomenon. The 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 bowls vials are 3 succeeding series of end times judgments from God. The judgments get progressively worse and more devastating as the end times progress. The 7 seals, trumpets, and bowls are connected to one another. The 7th seal introduces the 7 trumpets, and the 7th trumpet introduces the 7 bowls. The first 4 of the 7 seals are known as the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The first seal introduces the Antichrist. The second seal causes great warfare. The third of the 7 seals causes famine. The 4th seal brings about plague, further famine, and further warfare. The 5th seal tells us of those who will be martyred for their faith in Christ during the end times. God hears their cries for justice and will deliver it in his timing in the form of the 6th seal, along with the trumpet and the bowl judgments. When the 6th of the 7 seals is broken, a devastating earthquake occurs, causing massive upheaval and terrible devastation, along with unusual astronomical phenomena. Those who survive are right to cry out, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of their wrath has come, and who can't stand?" The 7 trumpets are described in Revelations 8:6-21. The 7 trumpets are the contents of the 7th seal. The first trumpet causes hail and fire that destroys much of the planet life in the world. The second trumpet brings about what seems to be a meteor hitting the oceans and causing the death of much of the world's sea life. The third trumpet is similar to the second, except its effects of the world's lakes and rivers instead of the oceans. The 4th of the 7 trumpets causes the sun and the moon to be darkened. The 5th trumpet results in a plague of demonic locusts that attack and torture humanity. The 6th trumpet releases a demonic army that kills a third of humanity. The 7th trumpet calls forth the 7 angels with the 7 bowls of God's wrath. The 7 bowl vial judgments are described in Revelation 16:1-21. The 7 bowl judgments are called forth by the 7th trumpet. The first bowl causes painful sores to break out on humanity. The second bowl causes in the death of every living thing in the sea. The third bowl causes the verves to turn into blood. And the 4th of the 7 bowls results in the sun's heat being intensified and causing great pain. The 5th bowl causes great darkness and intensification of the sores from the first bowl. The 6th bowl results in the Euphrates River being dried up and the armies of the Antichrist being gathered together to wage the battle of Armageddon. The 7th bowl results in a devastating earthquake followed by giant hailstones. Revelation 16:5-7 declares of God, "You are just in these judgments, you who are and who were the Holy One, because you have so judged. For I have shed the blood of your saints and prophets, and you have given them blood to drink as they deserve. Yes, Lord God Almighty, true and just are your judgments."
Anthony, I think I am officially afraid of these strange sounds.
I think I heard dogs barking outside.
No, you know what? I'm just kidding. But you know what? It really does sound pretty frightening when you read it. You know, I may just have the cherry on top of all of these paranormal theories. And has anyone ever heard of the Dogon people? The Dogon people occupy a region in Mali, south of the Sahara Desert in Africa. They live in the Hamburi Mountains near Timbuktu. Now, at the center of their religious teaching is the knowledge of Osiris B, a white dwarf, although small and faint, extremely dense and heavy enough to exert an influence on Cyrus A. The Dogon name for Cyrus B is Potolo. Tolo means star. Po means smallest seed. Now, in addition to their knowledge of Cyrus B, the Dogon mythology includes Saturn's rings, Jupiter's 4 major moons. They have 4 calendars, before the Sun, Moon, Sirius, and Venus, and have long known that planets orbit the Sun. They claim that a long time ago, a spaceship with 3 triangular legs landed. The Dogon call the creatures the Nomos, who have to live in water. The beings were human-looking. They put out a reservoir of water onto the earth. They dove out into the water. They were aquatic. More to the point, amphibious. They could walk and talk and live on earth, but they could also live in aquatic environments. They believe the Nomo will return to the earth one day. The Nomo, also known as the Dark Star, will make a roaring sound prior to returning. The Dogon people consider the humming sound of the bull roar to be the voice of the Dark Star. The hum of the bull roar sounds eerily similar to the recent strange sounds that have been reported all over the world in the past few weeks.
All right, that actually tops my story. But I want to share with everyone someone that I had actually contacted earlier this week. His name is Anthony Milne. He's a famous scientific author in Britain, and he's written several books on scientific phenomena, but most notably, he has a book titled Fireballs, Skyquakes, and Hums, Probing the Mysteries of Light and Sound. Pretty freaky that a book has already been written about this concept. He actually wrote this back in mid-2011 and has some pretty interesting ideas presented. Anyway, I wanted to get actually his take on this whole current situation, and amazingly, I got a response. Here is what he wrote me. Hello, Anthony. The strange echoing sounds heard in the open and largely urban areas in recent weeks seem to have been mainly confined to Costa Rica. They were weird, hollow, echoing sounds, almost music-like, possibly having construction site source, and repeated at 10-second intervals. These were heard apparently all over Costa Rica on January 12th, and video clips with same soundtracks were posted on various UFO websites. Then other videos were also posted shortly after, purporting to come from Winnipeg, Montreal, Brazil, and Poland. In Arkansas, the booming sounds were said to have caused the death of tens of thousands of fish and birds. And one contributor to Open Minds UFO Facebook, Shawnee Harrison, said she heard the sounds. However, there was a later suspicion of fakery and copycatting, as the mass media would have commented on the phenomenon if it had been widespread and discernible. The Costa Rica newspaper first reported the phenomenon was a fringe journal, often taken to retelling UFO-type stories, rather like some red tabloids. Yet a Costa Rican seismologist, Ronnie Quintero, said that it wasn't an earthquake. So presumably the noise an objective reality. Other scientists at the Ovescori Institute in that country also said that there were no earth movements at the time, without denying the sounds occurred. Other similar sounds were heard in January at Battleford, and again at Serious Scientific comment from a scientist, Jean-Pierre St. Maurice, indicated the sounds were real. He goes on to state more reports and suggests that it could be many things we just don't know yet.
So he couldn't give a guess as to what he thought it might be?
Yeah, I guess not. It seems like no one wants to give a definitive real answer on this for fear of being caught wrong. I guess everyone is playing it safe for now. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Well, Anthony, there actually was someone that I found that says he knows what these sounds are, and he has proven it.
Okay, I want to hear this one.
Okay. On January 22nd, 2012, the mystery of the strange UFO sounds being recorded across the globe was finally solved, or so one group says. The low creaking, groaning, and metallic sounds weren't caused by UFOs, the apocalypse, or aliens. The sounds were caused by someone projecting the sound of a musical instrument called a waterphone. This strange instrument was invented in the late 1960s and based on the Tibetan water drum. It was created by a man named Richard Waters, who still produces and sells them today on his website, waterphone.com. New Decade Production broke the news that the strange UFO sounds were most likely the result of someone playing low tones on this unusual instrument. Listening to the larger strings on this that are the lower frequencies ones, I think we may have our culprit. Project Bluebeam in action. Guys projecting recorded sounds from the waterphone. Or this is a hoax. I have tested two sounds together and that they are the same for sure. I am a light worker, not a debunker, but we must find out the culprit for sure. I do wish it was the Earth moving for ascension or our brother calling us, but no. The man behind the New Decade production released a video demonstrating his findings. Now, in it, he plays a waterphone, and he produces the exact same tones that are found in most of the strange UFO videos. He also demonstrates a variety of other sounds created by the waterphone. Now, although many of the sounds have not been used in UFO videos, you need to pay close attention to the lower tones. They are absolutely the same as the strange sounds heard all over the world. Anthony, can you play a little piece of that clip, please?
Yeah. I really think that could possibly be it. I mean, it may be a little bit far-fetched, and I'm going a little bit off right now, Lucy, but those low tones pretty much sound almost exactly like the audio clips that we were playing tonight and the hundreds that you actually see online and on YouTube. And, you know, if you take into account the idea that this unit, I mean, if you go online and you just type in waterphone, I think you can find it. I don't remember how I actually looked it up and found it that way, but if you just type in waterphone, I'm sure you'll find that video. And if this piece of equipment is played, and there's some sort of amplification that's attached to it or put near it, I don't know. I guarantee you can probably configure this as the reason. If it's available to purchase all over the world, people could be buying it and starting a viral hoax because of the 2012 doomsday farce. I mean, all you need is the amplifier and this waterphone, and you're set. In paranormal investigating, and as Lucy and I know, the one rule is that if you can repeat a sound or image by any means, it probably is not paranormal. So if somebody's able to recreate this in such a way that is so discernible and, to me, I don't know, a little conclusive, I think it's just a hoax. I don't think it's real. But there could be some that are out there that are real. I mean, I'll be curious to see if people come forward to tell the truth.
Well, until then, we may never know exactly what these sounds are. And I think that's all the research that we have on tonight's topic. So, Anthony, are there any callers on deck before we go on to the news and to the paranormal groups?
No, there's no one on deck.
Okay, so let's start the news.
Paranormal World News with your hosts, Anthony Agati and Lucy Leafreed.
I love that. My first story tonight is from CNN.com, and it's by Kendall Green. And going back to something that we mentioned a little bit earlier tonight, we have more unexplained animal deaths. Now, this time it's in the Northeast, and this story was posted on February 2nd. There have been at least 81 dolphins that have been found dead, or they died shortly after being discovered on Cape Cod. This is according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Now, in addition to this, more than 100 of the dolphins have been found stranded along the rocky Massachusetts shoreline since January. Now, the mammals have been washing up on shore in groups of as many as 10. And scientists involved in the rescue efforts, they're transporting these living dolphins by trailer. But they find the recent number of dead dolphins very disturbing. It's not actually clear what's causing the mass deaths, but one theory is that the recent changes in water temperature could be a contributing factor that has disoriented the mammals. Usually in the winter, the harbors ice over, and it inhibits the animals from coming up close to the shore. But since the water's warmer, there are a lot more dolphins washing up than ever before. Still, the cause of the strandings and the death isn't clear. This region has not experienced this kind of phenomenon in over a decade. Now, some of you may remember last year, dozens of dead seals were found along the Maine and Massachusetts coastlines. Pretty disturbing story, don't you think? My next story, switching gears here, is from fablife.com, and this one was dated January 31st, 2010. And I actually like this one because it goes back to our last show on dolls, specifically voodoo dolls. Madonna was on the Jay Leno show recently when Jay asked her about auditions that didn't go so well for her. He asked her, what did you audition for that you sucked at? Well, Madonna said she wouldn't tell, but then she actually said, I remember doing an audition once, and then afterwards it was just total silence. The director just went, thank you. And then there's the other kind of audition where you audition for something like 8 times. You just keep coming back and auditioning. It's kind of like a torture. I did that for a film, and I ended up not getting the part, and it wasn't very pleasant. I have a voodoo doll of that director. Now, Fablight speculates that it might be Martin Scorsese or even Wes Craven. But does anyone have any guesses? I just thought it was kind of funny that Madonna actually admitted that she had a voodoo doll. So that's how she made it, huh? Finally, my last story is from the Daily Star .co.uk, and this one's from February 3rd, actually today. It seems that the ghost of Amy Winehouse has been reported to be appearing in Canada. Now, a woman claiming to be a psychic named Nadine Roberts actually told Amy's dad, Mitch, that there's been a string of angelic appearings by the singer in Canada. She's actually been sending Mitch Twitter messages telling him about the hauntings by Amy, who died July 27th after a vodka binge. She said the rehab songbird kept appearing in white, telling her friends that a man named Kevin Sheridan in Bedfordshire was suffering. Now, Rhodes actually added that Amy also talked about how British police have been using voodoo to curse people, and Amy's father shot back at her on Twitter. You know this doesn't make any sense. Our police doesn't use voodoo. No idea who Kevin Sheridan is. Why would Amy appear to strangers? Now, the disturbing messages were another blow for Amy's dad, who, after this week he was told by the coroner at Amy's inquest, was not fully qualified, and actually the misadventure verdict on his daughter's death may be invalid. So, poor Amy. It sounds like she may have actually made it to rehab on the other side.
Well, I've got a couple of pieces of news, and my first one comes from Discovery News, dated January 30th, and it's titled, What's Taking E.T. So Long to Find Us? Mathematically speaking, E.T. would have found us by now if he exists, so we're being consciously avoided for some reason, a new study concludes. We're either alone or they're out there and they leave us alone. Mathematician Thomas Hare with Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers told Discovery News. Hare, who presented his research at the Mathematical Association of America in Boston earlier this month, based his approximation of what he considered to be extremely conservative estimates for how long it would take a society to muster up the resources and technological know-how to leave its home world and travel to another star. Even at the relatively sedate pace of 1% of light speed, the aliens would arrive at their nearest neighbor star in about 500 years. Light travels at about 186,000 miles per second. Figure another 500 years to build new ships, set out again, and so on, and the calculations show that civilization starting out from the oldest star in our galaxy would have had epochs of time to reach us by now. So where are they? He goes on to say, I think there are three options. Halley told Discovery News, life is rare, which I think has a reasonable probability of being correct. Life is weird. Every time you run into it, it's extremely different from the last time you saw it. Life is dull, meaning you will find something that looks a lot like life on Earth and our problems, if detecting life, are technical. I've come to the view that they're all possible, but the preponderance of evidence most likely fits the first. We are rare, Halley said. My next piece of news comes from unexplained-mysteries.com, and it was posted yesterday, February 2nd. And it's titled, Is There a Demon Behind the Sofa? I'm sure everybody on Facebook has seen this picture posted from either their friends or they've posted it themselves. But a photograph of a living room with a sinister paranormal extra has gone viral after being posted online. The quote-unquote demon is difficult to see at first. However, upon examining the lower left and increasing the brightness, a strange face can be clearly seen peering out from behind the cushions. The origins of the picture are unknown. Some believe the image is a hoax, while others aren't so sure. Either way, the image has succeeded in creeping out a lot of people. It could just be a trick of light, but the terrifying face in this picture could be something more sinister. At first glance, there is nothing untoward, and the image has divided the Internet between the people who can see it and those who cannot see it.
Anthony,
and my...
you know what?
Yeah.
I've actually seen that face, like, after the last party at my house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Face down drunk?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
My last piece of news comes from telegraph.co.uk, and it was posted Friday, January 27th. And this one's titled, Ghost Captured on Film Before Demolition. This one's actually pretty creepy. If you just, I guess if you go online, go on Google, and type in Ghost Captured on Film Before Demolition, you have to see this picture. And this is the article. Demolition workers managed to photograph a ghostly figure in a window at an old Victorian guest house. For many years, Frances Grimshaw worked the front desk at the Meadowbank Housing, taking reservations. It was clearly a job she loved, so much so that she appears to have returned there in protest of the destruction of the house, despite dying last year. Demolition workers about to knock down the building believe they have taken a photograph that shows her peering through the glass of one of its windows. The image is said to bear an eerie resemblance of Frances Grimshaw, who worked at the guest house and stood for hours at the same window taking bookings. David Grimshaw, former resident at the property, said he was convinced the figure is the ghost of his mother, who died nearly a year ago, aged 87. So that's it for the news. The next piece that we want to get to before we end the show tonight is to talk about paranormal groups. Okay, so here is where we promote and highlight fellow paranormal investigators from around the world. We've already mentioned groups from the West Coast, East Coast, and actually one from Canada. So why hasn't your group been mentioned on our show? What are you waiting for? Just send us an email at paranormalreviewradio@yahoo.com with my promo in the subject line. Be sure to include your group name, all the names of your members, and any interesting facts about your group or any of your investigations. We love giving back to the paranormal community, and we hope this helps get your group and your mission out in the public for everyone to notice. So we have one group to promote tonight, and they are Flagship Paranormal. They are based out of Erie, Pennsylvania. Their website is flagship.paranormal.webs.com, and they also have a Facebook account, which is Flagship Paranormal. They are independent paranormal researchers. They have no leader. All their members are equal. They do have bylaws, and every issue is voted on, and they have a tremendous amount of respect for each other. That's so great. Their members are Heidi Ladeau, Time Ladeau, Colleen Novozinski, Mary Adams, Zach Adams, Jason Kane, LaDonna Homan, Rachel Delaney, Christine Matha, and Amber Matha. Some members have specialty areas. Christine and Heidi are genealogists and property researchers. Colleen is a Reiki master and can perform cleansings. Time, Amber, and Zach are the 3 junior investigators. Their insight has proven invaluable on a number of occasions, and their opinions are respected. Heidi also belongs to the Fort LaBeouf Historical Society, the Erie County Historical Society, and the flagship Niagara League. As member of the Fort LaBeouf Historical Society, she schedules paranormal investigations at the Judson House and Eagle Hotel in Waterford, Pennsylvania, for any paranormal groups that want to investigate there. And maybe we'll actually give Heidi a call and schedule an investigation. Keep up the great work, Flagship Paranormal, and if you need any support, don't hesitate to email us or visit us on our Facebook page. That's so great.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I think that's it. What another amazing show. You know, I really had a lot of fun doing this one. Did you?
Yeah, I did too. This was a fun show to research, even though we weren't able to get any real answers. But, you know, it actually did teach me a lot about natural sounds and, well, you know, hoaxes too. All in all, it was a topic that we took very seriously, and we hope you did too.
You know what? This one really did make me do some serious thinking. So if you want to do some more research, or if you want to see the videos that we talked about, go to our Facebook page, Paranormal Review Radio. Now, while you're there, please let us know what you think. We welcome all of your comments, your questions, your suggestions. You know what? This is your show, so come on by and say hi. Anthony, thank you so much for everything you do for this show. Have I told you how amazing you are? Well, I'm telling you now. I want to thank everybody out there for listening. You know, your support means the world to us. You guys rock. You know what? We're going to see you next week, and you will not want to miss this next show. We're going to be talking all about psychics and mediums, and we have a special treat for all of you. We were able to convince the amazing Justin Chase Mullins to be on the show next week. Justin is going to be talking about being a psychic medium, and we may even convince him to do some readings for our listeners and for us. So make sure you call in early next week. So, on that note, thank you again for joining us. Have a paranormal week, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Paranormal Review Radio.